Ambassador Veltara stood in the communications center of her world's capital city. Her hands shook as she looked at the reports coming in from across her star system. The news was bad, very bad. The Korthax Empire had arrived. For 3 days, their black warships had been destroying everything in their path. Military bases, trading stations, mining colonies, all gone. The Korthax did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. They simply destroyed and moved on to the next target. Veltara was one of the few Zilani who had studied military history. She knew what was coming. The Korthax would destroy their defense fleet first. Then they would attack the civilian worlds. Millions would die. Her people had no chance against such a powerful enemy. "Send the distress signal," she told her communication officer. "Send it to every known civilization in the galaxy." The young officer looked confused. "All of them, Ambassador?" "Yes, all of them. We need help. Any help." Veltara watched as the message went out across space. It was a simple plea. Her people were peaceful. They were scholars, artists, and traders. They had never hurt anyone. But now they faced extinction. They needed medical supplies, food, and ships to evacuate their civilians. The first responses came within hours. Most were polite rejections. The Altrian Republic said they were sorry, but could not risk war with the Korthax. The Centauri Federation offered prayers for the Zilani people, but no actual help. The Crystal Union would provide some medical supplies, but no ships or military support. More responses trickled in over the next day. All were similar. Everyone was sorry. No one wanted to help enough to actually do anything useful. Veltara felt despair growing in her chest. She had expected this. The Zilani were valuable as trading partners and sources of art and knowledge, but they were not worth fighting a war over, not against the Korthax Empire. She was about to give up when a new message arrived. The signal was different from the others, stronger, more direct. It came from the outer rim of the galaxy, from a species she barely knew about. Humans. Veltara had heard of them but never met one. They were a young species, relatively new to galactic civilization. Their worlds were far away. Most people considered them unimportant. She opened the message. A face appeared on her screen. It was unlike any she had seen before. The human had pale skin and dark hair. His eyes were small and focused. There was something about those eyes that made her uncomfortable. They looked cold, hard. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth ship Vengeance," the human said. His voice was calm but carried an edge that made Veltara shiver. "We received your distress call. Help is on the way. Prepare for immediate extraction." The message ended. That was it. No long speech about friendship between species. No promises of medical aid or food supplies. Just those few words. Veltara played the message again. Something bothered her about it. The human had said his ship was called Vengeance. That was a strange name for a rescue vessel. Most peaceful ships had names like Hope, or Unity, or New Dawn. Vengeance sounded like a warship. "Ambassador," her aide said, rushing into the room. "The Korthax fleet is moving toward our home world. They will be here in 6 days." 6 days. Veltara felt sick. Even if the humans were coming to help, would they arrive in time? And what could one ship do against the entire Korthax fleet? She looked at the reports again. The Korthax had over 200 warships. Their smallest vessels were larger than anything in the Zilani defense fleet. Their weapons could crack planets. Their soldiers were 9 feet tall and bred for war. What could humans possibly do against such an enemy? But Veltara had no choice. The humans were the only ones who had agreed to help. She would have to trust them. She called an emergency meeting of the Zilani Council. The 12 council members gathered in the Great Hall. They looked as scared as she felt. "The Korthax will be here in 6 days, she told them. "Most of our requests for help have been refused, but one species has agreed to assist us." "Who?" asked Councillor Zethan. "Humans." The council members looked confused. Most had never heard of humans before. "They are from the outer rim," Veltara explained. "I do not know much about them, but they said help is coming." "How many ships?" asked another councillor. "They did not say. They only said to prepare for immediate extraction." "Extraction?" Councillor Zethan frowned. "That means they plan to evacuate us, not fight the Korthax." Veltara nodded. That made sense. No sane species would fight the Korthax Empire directly. The humans must be planning to help evacuate civilians before the attack. We should begin preparing the evacuation centers, she said. Get the children and elderly ready to leave first. For the next 3 days, the Zilani worked frantically. They packed essential supplies and prepared lists of who would be evacuated first. They tried to stay calm, but everyone could feel the fear in the air. The Korthax fleet kept getting closer. Their ships were so large they could be seen in the sky even during the day. Black dots that grew bigger each hour. On the 4th day, something new appeared on the sensors. Ships coming from the direction of human space. Veltara rushed to the communication center. How many ships? She asked. The sensor operator looked puzzled. 12, Ambassador, but they are strange. Strange how? They are not like any rescue ships I have seen before. They are heavily armed. Very heavily armed. Veltara felt a chill run down her spine. She asked to see the sensor readings for herself. What she saw made her blood run cold. The human ships were not evacuation vessels. They were warships. Big ones. And they were heading straight for the Korthax fleet. Open a channel to the lead human ship, she ordered. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen again. He looked exactly the same as before, cold, hard, ready for something that made Veltara very nervous. Captain Morrison, she said, we are grateful for your help, but I think there has been a misunderstanding. We need evacuation assistance, not military action. Morrison smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that predators made before they attacked. No misunderstanding, Ambassador, he said. We got your message. You have a problem. We solve problems. But Captain, the Korthax have over 200 ships. You only have 12. Morrison's smile got wider. That should be enough. The communication ended. Veltara stared at the blank screen. She had asked for help, but she was beginning to think that what was coming might be more dangerous than what they were trying to escape from. The humans were on their way, and somehow Veltara knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The human fleet arrived in the Zilani system just as the morning sun rose over the capital city. Veltara watched from the observation deck as 12 dark shapes moved through space like hunting animals. She had seen many different types of spaceships in her years as an ambassador. Trade vessels were usually round and friendly-looking. Science ships were white and clean. Even military ships from peaceful species had bright colors and smooth designs. The human ships were different. They were black as deep space and covered in weapons. Their hulls were scarred and dented from old battles. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of predators that had hunted together many times before. The largest ship was longer than 3 city blocks. Along its side, Veltara could see the name painted in white letters, UES Vengeance. Just looking at it made her feel afraid. Ambassador, her communication officer called out. The human captain wants to meet with you. He is requesting permission to beam down to the surface. Veltara felt her stomach twist with worry. Beam down? You mean transport technology? Yes, Ambassador. They want to send 2 of their people to the council chambers. Veltara had heard of transportation technology, but had never seen it used. Most species considered it too dangerous. The idea of breaking apart your body and putting it back together somewhere else seemed insane. But these were desperate times. Tell them they have permission, she said. 20 minutes later, Veltara stood in the great council chamber with the other Zilani leaders. They had prepared for this meeting carefully. Fresh flowers decorated the room, soft music played in the background. They had prepared traditional Zilani tea and small cakes to welcome their guests. The air in the center of the room began to shimmer. Points of light appeared and grew brighter. Then suddenly 2 figures appeared where nothing had been before. Veltara gasped. The humans were much larger than she had expected. Both stood over 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and thick muscles. They wore black armor that covered their entire bodies. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with dark visors. The larger of the 2 humans reached up and removed his helmet. Veltara saw Captain Morrison's face for the first time in person. His skin was weathered and marked with small scars. His eyes were pale blue and seemed to look right through her. The second human also removed her helmet. She was a woman with short brown hair and the same cold eyes as her captain. A name tag on her armor read Lieutenant K. Adams. Both humans carried weapons, large, dangerous-looking weapons that they did not try to hide. "Ambassador Veltara," Captain Morrison said. His voice was quiet, but somehow filled the entire room. "I am Captain Jake Morrison. This is my security chief, Lieutenant Kate Adams." Veltara tried to smile. "Welcome to our world, Captain Morrison. We are grateful that you have come to help us. Please sit down. We have prepared refreshments for you." Morrison looked at the chairs, which were designed for the smaller Zilani bodies. He remained standing. So did Lieutenant Adams. "Thank you, but we do not have time for ceremonies," Morrison said. "We need information about your enemy." The directness of his words surprised Veltara. Among her people, important meetings always began with polite conversation and sharing of food. It was considered rude to discuss business immediately, but these were not her people. "Of course," she said. "Please, let me show you our intelligence reports." She led them to a large table where star charts were spread out. The charts showed the position of Korthak's ships throughout the system. "The Korthak's fleet consists of over 200 vessels," she explained. "Their flagship is 5 miles long and carries enough firepower to destroy a moon. They have been moving through our system, destroying everything in their path." Morrison studied the charts carefully. His eyes moved from one Korthak's position to another. Lieutenant Adams took notes on a small device. "What is their command structure?" Morrison asked. "Their leader is Warlord Thrakis. He commands from the flagship. The rest of the fleet is organized into 20 battle groups. Weapons? Plasma cannons, fusion missiles, and boarding craft. Their soldiers are very dangerous." Morrison looked up from the charts. "How dangerous?" Veltara felt uncomfortable. She had seen recordings of Korthak's soldiers in action. The images still gave her nightmares. "They are 9 feet tall and weigh over 400 pounds. They have natural armor plates and claws that can cut through metal. They are bred for war from birth." Morrison nodded as if this information did not surprise him. "What about their tactics?" Lieutenant Adams asked. "They prefer direct assault. They destroy the enemy fleet first, then land troops to eliminate any survivors. They do not take prisoners." "Standard procedure," Morrison said. He rolled up the star charts. "We will need detailed scans of their ship designs and weapon specifications." Veltara blinked in confusion. "Captain, I think there may be some misunderstanding. We asked for evacuation assistance, not military action." Morrison looked at her with those cold blue eyes. "You asked for help. We are here to help. But you cannot fight the Korthak's fleet. You only have 12 ships. They have over 200. "Numbers are not everything," Lieutenant Adams said. Her voice was calm but somehow frightening. "Captain, please," Veltara said. "The Korthak's empire has conquered dozens of worlds. Their military is the most powerful in this part of the galaxy. No one fights them directly." Morrison smiled. It was the same cold smile she had seen on the communication screen. "No one has fought them directly yet," he said. Counselor Zethon stepped forward. "Captain Morrison, we appreciate your courage, but we are asking you to reconsider. The loss of your 12 ships will not help anyone. We only need transport vessels to evacuate our people." Morrison looked at the counselor for a long moment. "How many civilians need evacuation?" "About 50 million. "And how long would that take with standard transport ships?" Veltara did the calculation in her head. "Several months at least." "The Korthaks will be here in 2 days," Morrison said. "Your people would be dead before the evacuation was half finished." The room fell silent. Veltara knew he was right. There was no time for a proper evacuation. "So what do you suggest?" she asked quietly. Morrison pointed to the star charts. "We eliminate the threat." "You mean fight them?" "I mean destroy them." Lieutenant Adams stepped closer to the table. "Captain, show them the combat footage." Morrison touched a control on his armor. A holographic image appeared in the air above the table. It showed a space battle. Veltara watched in horror as human ships moved through enemy formations like deadly ghosts. Explosions bloomed where enemy vessels had been just moments before. This was the Battle of Kepler Station, Morrison explained. We fought a Saurian fleet twice our size. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The footage showed the final moments of the fight. The last enemy ship exploded in a ball of fire. The human fleet remained intact. The Saurians were considered one of the most dangerous military powers in their region, Lieutenant Adams added. They had never lost a battle before. Veltara stared at the hologram. What happened to the Saurian survivors? There were no survivors, Morrison said simply. The cold way he said those words made Veltara's blood freeze. She was beginning to understand what kind of help had arrived in their system. Captain, she said carefully, what exactly is your mission here? Morrison looked directly into her eyes. We received a distress call from peaceful civilians asking for protection from military aggressors. Our mission is to provide that protection. By destroying the Korthax fleet? By whatever means necessary. Veltara felt dizzy. She had asked for help from humanitarian peacekeepers. Instead, she had called in something far more dangerous than the enemy they faced. We should go, Lieutenant Adams said to her captain. We have a battle to prepare for. Morrison nodded. Ambassador, keep your people in the underground shelters. This will be over soon. How soon? Veltara asked. Morrison checked a device on his wrist. The Korthax fleet will reach attack position in 36 hours. We will engage them at the edge of your solar system. And if you lose? Morrison smiled that cold, predatory smile again. We do not lose. The two humans put their helmets back on. The air began to shimmer around them. Captain, wait, Veltara called out. What kind of people are you? The shimmer grew brighter. Just before they disappeared, she heard Morrison's answer. We are the kind of people you call when you need monsters eliminated. Then they were gone, leaving only the faint smell of ozone and the sound of Veltara's rapidly beating heart. Admiral Rex Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the sensor displays with calm eyes. Around him, his crew worked quietly and efficiently. They had done this many times before. Admiral, his tactical officer called out. Long-range sensors are picking up the Korthax fleet. They are moving into attack formation. Commander Lisa Grant stepped up beside Carter. She was his second in command and had fought with him for over 10 years. How many ships, Commander? 212, Admiral, including their flagship, the Deathbringer. Carter nodded. The numbers were about what he had expected. He turned to look at the main display screen, which showed the tactical situation. The Korthax fleet was massive. Their ships were arranged in a classic attack formation, with the largest vessels in the center and smaller ships protecting the flanks. It was a formation designed to crush opposition through sheer force. Assessment, Commander Grant? Carter asked. Grant studied the display for a moment. Standard Korthax tactics, Admiral. They rely on superior numbers and firepower. They will try to overwhelm us with a direct assault. Weaknesses? Their formation is designed for fighting other conventional fleets. They expect their enemies to meet them head-on in a straight battle. They are not prepared for unconventional tactics. Carter smiled. Unconventional tactics were humanity's specialty. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Execute Battle Plan Alpha 7. Across the human fleet, ships began to change course. Instead of moving toward the enemy in a straight line, they scattered in different directions. Some headed toward the asteroid belt, others moved behind the gas giant's moons. 2 ships actually headed away from the battle entirely. On the Korthax flagship, Warlord Thrakis watched the human movements with confusion. He was over 8 feet tall with thick armor plates covering his body. His species had evolved from the apex predators of their home world. They had been warriors for thousands of years. What are they doing? He growled to his tactical officer. Unknown, Warlord. Their movements do not follow any logical attack pattern. Thrakis had conquered 47 worlds. He had faced every type of enemy imaginable, but he had never seen ships move like this. The humans seemed to be running away from the fight. Perhaps they realize they cannot win, suggested his second in command. 12 ships against 200 is suicide. Threkis nodded. That made sense. The humans had probably come to rescue civilians, not fight a battle. When they saw the size of his fleet, they decided to retreat. "Pursue them," he ordered. "We will destroy them before they can escape." The Korthax fleet changed course to follow the scattered human ships. This was exactly what Admiral Carter had wanted them to do. "Phase 2, Carter announced calmly. The human ships that had seemed to be retreating suddenly changed direction. They used the gravity of planets and moons to increase their speed, moving faster than the Korthax had thought possible. Captain Morrison's ship, the UES Reaper, swung around the dark side of a moon and emerged directly behind a group of Korthax vessels. The enemy ships were focused on chasing other human ships and did not see the threat until it was too late. Morrison's weapons officer was a young man named Pete Clark. He had been in the fleet for 3 years and had never missed a target. "Target acquired," Clark announced. 20 Korthax ships in formation. "Fire," Morrison ordered. The Reaper's main guns fired a salvo of kinetic rounds. These were not energy weapons like most species used. They were simple metal rods accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic fields. The kinetic rounds hit the Korthax ships like invisible hammers. The enemy shields, designed to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid projectiles moving at such high velocity. 6 Korthax ships exploded instantly. Their hulls were torn apart by the impact. The other 14 ships in the formation were damaged and spinning out of control. "Direct hits," Clark reported. 6 confirmed kills. Morrison was already selecting his next target. "Well done. Reload and acquire new targets." Across the battlefield, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, from the shadow of moons, even from inside the gas giant's atmosphere. Each time they struck, Korthax ships died. On the flagship, Warlord Threkis watched his fleet taking casualties and felt something he had not experienced in decades: fear. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 37, Warlord, and the number is climbing." "How is this possible? They only have 12 ships." His tactical officer was studying the sensor readings frantically. "Warlord, their weapons are unlike anything we have faced before. They appear to be using kinetic projectiles instead of energy weapons." "Kinetic projectiles? That is primitive technology." "Yes, Warlord, but they are moving at speeds that should be impossible. Our shields cannot stop them." Threkis felt his confidence beginning to crack. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced an enemy that could strike from such long range with such devastating accuracy. "Change formation," he ordered. "Spread the fleet out. Make it harder for them to target multiple ships." But the humans were already adapting to the new formation. Admiral Carter watched the Korthax movements from his command center and smiled coldly. "They are learning," Commander Grant observed. "Too slowly," Carter replied. "Signal Captain Morrison, execute Harassment Protocol 7. Morrison received the signal and immediately understood what his admiral wanted. He moved his ship toward a group of damaged Korthax vessels that were trying to retreat. "Sir," his weapons officer said, "those ships are already disabled. They pose no threat." Morrison looked at the young man with eyes that had seen too many battles. "Lesson 1, Clark. A wounded enemy is still an enemy. Finish them." Clark hesitated for just a moment. Then he pressed the firing control. The kinetic rounds tore through the damaged Korthax ships, destroying them completely. Meanwhile, Captain Amy Ross commanded the UES Striker. Her ship was the smallest in the human fleet, but also the fastest. She specialized in hit-and-run attacks. "Target the command ships," she told her crew. "Cut off their communications." The Striker moved through the Korthax formation like a deadly ghost. Ross targeted the communication arrays on enemy ships, using precise shots to disable them without destroying the vessels entirely. Within an hour, half the Korthax fleet could not communicate with each other. Their coordinated attack fell apart as individual ship captains made their own decisions about what to do. Some tried to retreat, others attempted to charge the human ships. A few simply stopped moving, overwhelmed by the chaos around them. All of them died. Admiral Carter watched the battle unfold with professional satisfaction. The Korthax were dangerous opponents, but they fought like most military species did. They relied on superior numbers, heavy weapons, and direct confrontation. Humans had learned to fight differently. They had been forced to. Earth's history was full of wars where the outnumbered side had found ways to win through cunning and ruthlessness. "Admiral," Commander Grant reported, "we have destroyed over half their fleet. The remainder are beginning to break formation." Carter nodded. "Signal all ships. Begin Phase 3. Phase 3 was the killing stroke. The human ships stopped their hit-and-run tactics and began to hunt down the surviving Korthax vessels systematically. They moved in coordinated groups, trapping enemy ships between multiple human vessels. Dr. Sam Brooks, the fleet's science officer, monitored the battle from his laboratory aboard the Vengeance. He was studying the wreckage of destroyed Korthax ships, analyzing their technology and looking for weaknesses. "Fascinating," he murmured as he examined the sensor data. "Their hull armor is designed to resist energy weapons but provides little protection against kinetic impact, and their tactical systems are built around the assumption that their enemies will fight honorably." Brooks was not a military officer, but he understood warfare from a scientific perspective. The Korthax had evolved to fight other warrior species who followed similar codes of honor. They were not prepared for enemies who used every advantage available to them. "Admiral," Brooks called over the communication system, "I have identified a weakness in their flagship." Carter's voice crackled back over the speaker. "Report, Doctor." "The Deathbringer has massive energy shields but limited point defense systems. If we can get close enough to launch boarding craft, we might be able to take the ship intact." "Interesting. Do we need the ship intact?" Brooks smiled. "No, Admiral. But Warlord Thrakis might have useful information about other Korthax military operations." Carter considered this for a moment. "Very well. Signal Captain Morrison. Tell him to prepare for a boarding action." Morrison received the order with grim satisfaction. He had been hoping for a chance to face the Korthax in personal combat. "You heard the Admiral," he told his security chief, Lieutenant Adams. "Prepare the boarding party." Adams selected 20 of their best Marines. These were soldiers who had fought on dozens of worlds against every type of enemy imaginable. They were experts at close-quarters combat and had never failed to complete a mission. The battle was entering its final phase. Of the 212 ships in the Korthax fleet, fewer than 50 remained operational. Warlord Thrakis found himself commanding a defeated force for the first time in his career. "Signal retreat," he ordered desperately. "Warlord, many of our ships cannot receive signals. Their communication systems have been destroyed." Thrakis felt trapped. His supposedly invincible fleet had been destroyed by 12 human ships in less than 3 hours. It was impossible, but it was happening. "How many of our people have died?" he asked quietly. His tactical officer checked the casualty reports. "Over 200,000, Warlord. 200,000 Korthax warriors. Dead." Thrakis had expected to lose some soldiers taking the Zalani worlds, but not like this. Not in a battle where his forces never even had a chance to fight back properly. On his sensors, he could see human ships moving toward his flagship. They were coming for him personally. For the first time in his life, Warlord Thrakis understood what his victims had felt when they saw his fleet approaching their worlds. He was about to learn what it meant to be hunted by humans. Sergeant Dan Kelly checked his equipment one final time as the boarding craft approached the Korthax flagship. Around him, 19 other human Marines prepared for battle. Each wore black combat armor that covered them from head to toe. Their weapons were loaded and ready. Kelly had been fighting for 15 years. He had boarded enemy ships on 43 different occasions. He had never lost a Marine under his command, and he did not intend to start today. "Listen up," he said to his team over the communication system. "Intelligence says there are about 3,000 Korthax warriors on that ship. They are bigger than us, stronger than us, and they have natural weapons." Corporal Amy Ross, his second-in-command, smiled behind her helmet. "So what else is new, Sergeant?" Kelly grinned. Ross was tough as steel and twice as sharp. She had been with him for 8 years and had never backed down from a fight. "What else is new," Kelly replied, "is that we are going to show them what happens when you threaten innocent civilians." The boarding craft shook as it attached to the hull of the Korthax flagship. Kelly could hear the cutting tools beginning to work on the enemy ship's armor. 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Kelly activated his helmet display. It showed the layout of the enemy ship that Dr. Brooks had provided. The bridge was 12 levels up from their entry point. Between them and their target were thousands of enemy soldiers. "Remember the plan," Kelly said. "We move fast, we move hard, and we do not give them time to organize. Ross, take your team to the left corridor. I will take the right. We meet at the command center." "Got it, Sergeant." The cutting tools finished their work. A circular section of the enemy hull fell inward with a loud crash. Immediately, Kelly could hear alien voices shouting in the distance. "Go, go, go!" Kelly yelled. The Marines poured through the hole in the ship's hull. They found themselves in a cargo bay filled with military equipment. The Korthax had not expected anyone to board their flagship, so the area was lightly defended, but that changed quickly. The first Korthax warrior Kelly saw was even more frightening than the intelligence reports had suggested. The creature stood over 9 feet tall and weighed at least 400 pounds. Its skin was covered with natural armor plates that looked thick enough to stop bullets. Its hands ended in claws that could probably tear through metal. The warrior roared and charged toward Kelly with amazing speed for something so large. Kelly did not try to match the creature's strength. Instead, he did what humans had always done when facing stronger opponents. He cheated. As the Korthax warrior reached for him, Kelly dropped a small device at its feet and rolled away. The device exploded 2 seconds later, filling the air with a cloud of chemical gas. The warrior stumbled, choking and confused. Kelly put 3 rounds from his rifle into its head. The creature fell. "Chemical weapons deployed," Kelly reported over the radio. "All Marines, switch to sealed air systems." The humans had studied the Korthax biology carefully. Dr. Brooks had identified several chemicals that would affect their respiratory systems without harming humans in sealed armor. Within minutes, the cargo bay was filled with a toxic fog that made it impossible for the Korthax to fight effectively. The Marines moved through the gas like ghosts, picking off enemies who could barely see or breathe. "This is not honorable combat," one of the Korthax warriors gasped before Corporal Ross shot him. "Honor is for people who fight fair," Ross replied coldly. "We fight to win." Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was leading a second boarding party toward the ship's engineering section. His team included some of the most experienced soldiers in the human fleet. Morrison's approach was different from Kelly's. Where Kelly used chemical weapons and explosives, Morrison preferred psychological warfare. His team moved through the ship's corridors slowly and deliberately. They did not try to kill every enemy they encountered. Instead, they left wounded Korthax warriors alive to spread fear throughout the ship. Private Mike Stone was Morrison's demolitions expert. He planted small explosive charges in strategic locations as they moved. The charges were not designed to destroy the ship. They were designed to create noise, confusion, and terror. Every few minutes, another explosion would echo through the ship's corridors. The Korthax warriors never knew where the next blast would come from. They began to jump at every sound. "Captain," Stone reported, "we have reached the engineering section. Should we take out their power systems?" Morrison studied the tactical display on his helmet. "Negative. We want them to know we could have destroyed their ship but chose not to. That will be more frightening than actually doing it." Morrison understood something that many military leaders did not. Sometimes leaving an enemy partially functional was more demoralizing than destroying them completely. The Korthax warriors would spend the rest of their lives wondering why the humans had shown mercy and whether that mercy might run out someday. Back in the cargo bay, Sergeant Kelly's team was making rapid progress toward the upper levels of the ship. The chemical weapons had cleared most of the resistance, but they still encountered small groups of Korthax warriors who had managed to find breathing equipment. These fights were more challenging. The Korthax were incredibly strong and their natural armor could stop most small arms fire. But the humans had advantages that went beyond weapons and equipment. Kelly's Marines had been fighting together for years. They moved like a single organism, each soldier knowing exactly what the others would do in any situation. When they encountered a group of Korthax warriors, they did not fight them one-on-one. Instead, they surrounded the enemy and attacked from multiple directions at once. The Korthax were brave, but they were also individuals. Each warrior fought for his own glory and honor. They did not coordinate their attacks the way humans did. "Contact front," called Private Lisa Park as they entered a large corridor. 6 Korthax warriors were waiting for them, armed with energy weapons and traditional bladed weapons. The warriors charged, roaring battle cries that echoed off the metal walls. Kelly's team did not charge back. Instead, they took cover and opened fire with precision weapons. Each Marine targeted specific weak points in the Cortax armor, joints, eye slits, and gaps between armor plates. The enemy warriors were tough, but they were not invincible. One by one, they fell to carefully aimed shots. "Area secure," Kelly reported, moving to level 7. As they climbed through the ship, the Marines began to encounter more sophisticated defenses. The Corthax had automated gun systems and energy barriers protecting their most important areas. This was where human ingenuity really showed itself. Corporal Ross studied an energy barrier that blocked their path to the bridge. The barrier was designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles. It was a sophisticated piece of technology that most species would have found impossible to bypass. Ross pulled out a small device that looked like a metal spider. "Engineering drone," she explained to the newer members of the team. "Dr. Brooks designed these specifically for this mission." The drone scuttled along the wall until it found the barrier's power coupling. It attached itself to the system and began to hack into the ship's computer network. 30 seconds later, the barrier flickered and died. "How did it do that so fast?" asked Private Stone. "Corthax computer systems are designed for honor-based warfare," Ross explained. "They assume their enemies will try to destroy the barriers, not hack them. Their security protocols are not prepared for sneaky attacks." The Marines continued their advance. Behind them, they left a trail of disabled systems, unconscious enemies, and small fires that would take hours to put out. They were not just trying to capture the ship, they were sending a message to every Corthax warrior aboard. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not follow the same rules. They used every advantage they could find, no matter how unfair it might seem. By the time Kelly's team reached the command deck, word of their approach had spread throughout the ship. The remaining Corthax warriors were terrified of these small, weak-looking creatures who fought like demons. "Sergeant," came Admiral Carter's voice over the radio. "Status report." "We are approaching the bridge," Kelly replied. "Resistance has been lighter than expected. I think we have broken their morale." "Understood. Proceed with the capture of their command staff." Kelly smiled grimly. The hard part was over. Now came the fun part. Warlord Thrakis waited on his bridge, surrounded by his personal guard. He had heard the reports from throughout his ship. These humans were like nothing his people had ever faced before. They did not fight with honor. They did not show mercy to wounded enemies. They used weapons and tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare, and they were winning. "Warlord," his tactical officer said nervously, "perhaps we should consider surrender." Thrakis looked at the younger warrior with disgust. "Corthax do not surrender. We fight until death." But even as he said the words, Thrakis wondered if death might be preferable to capture by these terrifying humans. The bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and fire, dark figures in black armor advanced with weapons ready. Warlord Thrakis was about to meet Sergeant Kelly face to face, and he was about to learn that there were fates worse than death. Warlord Thrakis stood in the center of his bridge, surrounded by his dead guards. The human Marines had moved through his personal troops like death itself. Now he faced Sergeant Kelly alone. The human was much smaller than Thrakis, barely reaching the Corthax leader's chest, but something in those cold eyes made the warlord feel afraid for the first time in his adult life. "Warlord Thrakis," Kelly said calmly, "you are now a prisoner of the United Earth Fleet." Thrakis looked around his ruined bridge. Smoke still rose from destroyed control stations. The bodies of his warriors lay scattered across the floor. Through the main view screen, he could see the wreckage of his once mighty fleet floating in space. "How?" Thrakis asked simply. Kelly tilted his head slightly. "How what? How did you destroy us so completely? We are the Corthax Empire. We have conquered 47 worlds. Our military has never been defeated." "You have never fought humans before," Kelly replied. "But you are so few and so small." Kelly smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Size does not matter when you know how to fight properly." Admiral Carter's voice crackled over the communication system. "Sergeant Kelly, bring the prisoner to the Vengeance. We have questions for him." "Understood, Admiral." 2 hours later, Thrakus found himself in the interrogation chamber of the human flagship. The room was plain and functional, with no decorations or comfort items. Admiral Carter sat across from him at a simple metal table. "You destroyed my entire fleet," Thrakus said. "What more do you want from me?" Carter studied the alien warlord with interest. "Information. We want to know about other Korthax military operations." "I will tell you nothing." "Yes, you will," Carter said quietly. "The question is whether you tell us now or later." Dr. Brooks entered the room carrying a medical scanner. "Admiral, I have completed my analysis of Korthax physiology. I can have a truth serum ready in 20 minutes. Thrakus felt his blood run cold. Truth serums were considered a war crime by most civilized species. "That will not be necessary, Doctor," Carter said. "I believe our guest will cooperate voluntarily." "And if he does not?" Carter's expression did not change. "Then we will visit the other Korthax worlds and ask them the same questions." The threat was clear. If Thrakus did not provide the information they wanted, the humans would attack every Korthax colony and military base until they found someone who would talk. "You cannot destroy an entire empire," Thrakus protested. "We have done it before," Carter replied simply. Over the next several hours, Thrakus told the humans everything he knew about Korthax military operations. He provided fleet positions, supply routes, and command structures. He had no choice. The alternative was watching his entire civilization burn. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was dealing with the aftermath of the battle. His crew was cataloging the wreckage of the Korthax fleet and searching for survivors. They found very few. The human attack had been so devastating that most enemy ships had been completely destroyed. The few Korthax warriors who had survived were in shock. "Captain," Lieutenant Adams reported, "we have recovered approximately 2,000 survivors from the enemy fleet." "Put them in the holding areas," Morrison ordered. "Make sure they are fed and given medical attention." Adams looked surprised. "Sir, after what they did to civilian populations?" Morrison understood her confusion. The Korthax Empire was known for its brutality toward conquered peoples. They had committed genocide on multiple worlds. "We are not them, Lieutenant," Morrison said firmly. "We fight to protect innocent people. That includes enemy prisoners who are no longer a threat." This was the difference between humans and the Korthax. Humans could be utterly ruthless in battle, but they still maintained certain moral standards. They did not kill helpless enemies or torture prisoners. It was a distinction that would matter greatly in the days to come. 3 days after the battle, Ambassador Veltara stood in the observation deck of the Vengeance, looking out at her home world. The planet was safe. The Korthax threat had been eliminated. Her people were alive, but she still felt deeply troubled by what she had witnessed. "Captain Morrison," she said as the human officer joined her at the window, "I must ask you something." "Of course, Ambassador." "What your people did, the way you fought, it was not like anything I have ever seen before." Morrison nodded. "We fight differently than most species. You used chemical weapons. You attacked disabled ships. You showed no mercy during the battle." "No," Morrison agreed. "We did not." Veltara turned to face him. "How can you justify such tactics?" Morrison was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful rather than defensive. "Ambassador, how many civilians did the Korthax kill in their last conquest?" "Intelligence reports suggest approximately 12 million. "And how many would they have killed on your world?" Veltara felt sick thinking about it. "At least 50 million. "Our tactics saved 50 million innocent lives," Morrison said. "We did what was necessary to protect people who could not protect themselves. But the way you fought, it was so brutal." Morrison looked out at the peaceful world below them. "Yes, it was. War is always brutal, Ambassador. The question is whether you are brutal to protect the innocent or brutal to harm them." "Is that how you justify it?" "We do not justify anything," Morrison replied. "We simply accept the responsibility that comes with our capabilities." "What responsibility?"